That's America, and you can do magic. And, do you know, a slight change of plan yet again. In the studio, I've got a guy who can do magic. It is Denis Gillison. He does magic with the voice because he's a busker and he's a folk singer and all manner of other things. You're a local lad as well, aren't you?
Yes, I am a local lad. I had problem finding this place because I was told to go down Riverside Walk. If I'd have been told Parker's Field, I would have found it easily because I was born in Agnes Street.
I never thought of that.
Yeah, and this is the old Hutchinson house.
Is it?
Yeah, yes, they live next door to each other, the grandparents and yeah.
Well, that'll teach me, won't it? The next time I'm trying to tell people where the studio is, I'll check. And if they're Grantham born and bred, they'll know, won't
they'll
they?
certainly know where Parker's Field is, yeah.
Right, so where did you say you were born?
Agnes Street. Oh, I was born in the hospital, but I lived in Agnes Street when
Yeah. So you grew up all around here?
All around here. This is our playground in the Witham, Middlemore Yard, East Street.
How brilliant. And did you go to school in Grantham then?
Yes, St Anne's School with the famous Mrs White was my primary teacher. Mrs Harris was the headmistress. Anybody who went to St Anne's School will remember them.
And they'll remember you, I'm sure.
Well, they probably will, yeah.
So when did you actually decide that you were going somewhere else? Because you're not at Grantham all the time now, are you?
No, I've lived overseas since 1969 when I actually hitchhiked to Australia. And people say you can't hitchhike to Australia, but we did.
It is difficult, I imagine.
It is difficult. There were a couple of sea trips in between, and one last little air flight from Timor to Darwin. But apart from the rest of the way, we just hitchhiked. I took £200 with me and landed in Australia with about 40.
That's a lot of money, actually, £200. Well, it was in 1969.
It was a lot of money, yeah.
Were you already performing then?
Yes, I was, doing a little bit. And I used to play in a couple of the local rock bands, the Trellians at the time. And
the Trellians?
The Trellians at the same time as the famous Pontiacs and the Cobalts and...
I reckon Ian Smith would know all those, wouldn't he?
Yes, he would, yeah.
He would, yeah. He ought to be here, really. He does a great show. It's called Gravity Gold, and he plays a lot of the old stuff, and it's a really super show, but I've heard him talk about all those bands, so that's brilliant. Well, look, we'll be talking to Denis again in just a moment after this. Nickelback and their new one, What Are You Waiting For? Well, I'll tell you what we're waiting for. We're waiting for Denis Gillison. He's a busker and he's a folk singer, and he's right here. And it's lovely to talk to you.
I haven't done any busking for quite a while.
Haven't you?
No, I decided it was easier behind a microphone. Inside the pub instead of out.
You are often called the busker on promotional stuff because I found it.
Yeah, in New Zealand I'm infamous as the busker.
Are you really?
Because I was probably the first. They hadn't seen a busker before when I arrived there in 1970.
Don't they have buskers over there?
Well,
then?
not up to there's a proliferated since, but in 1970 I was a total novelty.
The only one.
Only one. They became the busker, yes.
Well, I was quite fortunate to catch you performing on Saturday. You were at Ropsley at the Green Man.
Oh yes, Ropsley is one of my favourite little villages. My dad came from Ropsley.
Oh, I see. Right.
Spent many a night playing dominoes in the Green Man.
So, do you tour in the UK every year?
No, I haven't been here since we had an earthquake in Christchurch 4 years ago, the city over virtually, and everything's been revolved around the earthquake ever since, really. So this is the first time I've been for 4 years since then.
Oh, so you want to catch him, folks, if you can. Now, you've got you're down in London Friday, aren't you?
Yes.
But you've got an event in Grantham again on Saturday?
Oh, at the Gables, yeah.
At the Gables, yeah. Right. So if you want to see Denis, or hear Denis, I should say, really, and he will have a microphone, he won't be busking. So you've also had some quite successful records, really. In
New Zealand I've had one or two, but not really that success. They never got into the charts, but I made records under the busker in New Zealand, and, well, yes, it was... they weren't successful, put it that way. They never got in the charts or anything fantastic.
Well, it's not everything to get in the charts, is it? No, it's not quite everything.
Because New Zealand being a very small country, it was hard in the 60s and 70s to...
Because I think the world and his brother has wanted to visit New Zealand since the making of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit,
Since then, yeah. Before that, it's still been quite popular because it's quite difficult. There's a long flight. A lot of people are put off by the flight. But I've had a host of visitors from Grantham over the years.
To see it. Yeah. What's the weather like over there, then?
Much the same as here, really, where I live in Christchurch. Yeah, cold winters. We get a bit of snow in the winter sometimes. The only difference is you get your summer at Christmas, which I always think is the spoiling point, because after Christmas and your summer holidays, you've got to wait another year, whereas here you've had your Christmas and you've got your summer holidays coming up in 6 months.
Yes. Oh, I see. Right. Oh, now that's a bonus. I'd not thought of it that way before.
It's a bonus here, but it's not over here. I think it's yeah.
Yeah, so you missed that bit.
Yeah.
You missed that bit. So do you perform all year round then?
Yes. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, all year round. Yeah.
Oh, everybody
not
must
so much as I used to. I used to do 7 or 8 gigs a week.
Really?
Yeah. I do Saturday lunch times and Saturday tea times, and Saturday 3 on a Saturday, and yeah, I was very busy for many years. But I got a little bit older, and karaoke came along.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
No, for me it wasn't a good thing, but whatever, people like it. Well, they used to like it, so no.
I don't think it's quite as popular now. It's much better to hear somebody who can actually sing.
Yeah, it got people participating, I suppose. I'd soon have. I've found these days I like to get people singing along, which is an old corny thing, but people just love to go out and sing, so I go for songs.
Well, everybody was singing on Saturday.
Yeah, you noticed.
Yeah, I did. So what sort of songs do you do?
Old musical songs, old folk songs, old Irish ballads. They don't have to be, and Beatles ones, new ones as well, but the old, even Long Way to Tipperary, every night you get everybody singing, and that's great.
And everybody really enjoys that. Now, you brought something for us to listen to, haven't you?
Oh yes, this is my little one that I wrote about, Woodbine Lil.
Now that's a good treat for the Grantham people,
Grantham
isn't
folks older folks will remember Woodbine Lil.
They will remember.
Some in different ways to others.
Well, I'll try and play this. I don't know about its volume, but we'll see how this goes. This is Denis Gillison.
Oh, it ain't the breeze disturbs the leaves on a cold St. Peter's Hill.
Well, that was pretty amazing.
Oh, good. I'm glad you like it.
That will bring back a lot of memories for Grantham folk, I'm absolutely sure.
I'm sure it will, yeah. Even the Hare and Hounds. I remember the Hare and Hounds was one of the first pubs I ever went in with my dad when I was about 3 years old, and it had sawdust down East Street, sawdust on the floor. This was 1948, of course. It was quite early on.
Yeah. I've seen photographs of that one, and I've heard quite a bit about it as well, because we did a programme on the old pubs of Grantham.
All right.
And I was lucky enough to be able to interview a few people that remembered, particularly Alan Senior, who's got just a mine of information and loads of photographs of all the old pubs. Absolutely brilliant. Okay, we'll be back in a couple of minutes after this. That was Foster the People and Pumped Up Kicks. And I'm talking now to Denis Gillison, a folk singer. And he's just been telling me about whose bus was it?
Ted Burroughs. Ted Burroughs' bus.
Now, that doesn't mean a great deal to me, but I bet it does to a lot of you listeners.
It will do it to a lot of people, yeah. In the late 50s and 60s, everywhere you wanted to go, you went on Ted Burroughs' bus. Ted always ran a bus to the local dance, so it might be Sleaford or Stamford, and sometimes the band went on the bus as well. And Ted was an infamous character. His eyesight wasn't too good. I mean, we'd come back from Stamford down the Central Reservation one Saturday night, I remember. He wasn't drunk, he just didn't see too well.
Oh,
Ted.
my
But
goodness.
a lovely chap and a lovely old bus.
Now, you said you went to St Anne's.
Yeah.
Where did you go after
the
that?
King's School.
The King's School,
Yeah.
right. So you're a King's School lad.
King's School, and started in the famous days of Mr Huggins.
Oh, right.
And a lot of people will remember Mr Huggins. Some will be,
Strict.
So
Strict.
He was strict. I think he was probably one of the last of the old school. Mr Goodban came along and things were liberalised a little bit, but Mr Huggins was. We were quite frightened of him.
Well, that's no bad thing, really,
no bad
I suppose.
Thing.
Yeah. And what did you do after you left school?
I went to Barford's as a draftsman.
Right.
And then Barford's Belton for a while.
Yeah.
And that was when the place was huge, 1,500. There might have been 2,000 people worked there. Belton was, Barford's was a city by itself, a town by itself in those days. It was.
Well, engineering was absolutely massive in Grantham, wasn't it?
Oh, crocky. Well, it has been for years, hasn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
It's a history of his engineering around here. But Barford's was, and Grantham, Hornsby's, Neil's Cranes, Marco's, of course. My dad, I was actually named after the boss of Marco's, a chap called Denis Kendall. And my dad was a great fan of Denis Kendall and was his chauffeur for a while. And they named me Denis after Denis.
Oh, that's nice. That is nice. We did a programme on Evelyn Barford's. It was Betty Elmer. She did a lovely programme for us all about the engineering works and various things that have gone on. And I recently interviewed... Now, who did I interview? Is it Les Stancer? Now, he wasn't Evelyn and Barford's, he's a footballer. And he rang up and we did an interview with him, but he remembered all these engineering times as well.
I mean, they're so well off. I mean, Barford's had this massive sports social complex out at Arnold Field there with tennis courts and all the things, just for the recreation of the workers.
Have you been up there?
Arnold Field, not lately, no. Not.
Well, we've got the most amazing tennis club up there now. State of the art.
Yes,
millions of pounds worth.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fantastic. You ought to call in and have a coffee.
Oh.
It's really, really nice. Now, we've got a plug for Gunnerby, because you're going to Gunnerby soon.
Yeah, Gunnerby Club on October the 11th. Yeah.
Going to be performing there.
I'll be performing there, most probably in the bar, but they've told me they might move the snooker table.
Oh, that's kind of. Now, if you're listening,
that's only so people don't sit on it.
Yeah, you can walk round and listen to Denis do his stuff in the Gunnerby Social Club. That's October the 11th. Now, where did the travel start in all this? We've got you at Evelyn and Barford's now.
Evelyn Barford, and then myself and a couple of mates, we decided when we'd done our apprenticeship we were going to buy a van and drive around Europe. So we bought this old Commer van for about £15. And I remember when we first got it, driving down the high street, the gear lever came out outside the Granada. And
that was a good start.
That was a great start, and things dropped off. But we drove it. We did get to Istanbul, and we were, of course, in 68, it would have been 68, something like that. We were quite... the van trips have been common ever since, but we were one of the first to get down there and back on nothing, virtually nothing. We're picking up hitchhikers and charging them, and fruit picking and things like that on the way back.
Oh, I did a bit of fruit picking.
My biggest cultural experience really was driving into Istanbul. I can remember it to this day. We'd been driving through Europe, and suddenly you get to Istanbul, and this cacophony of horns and sounds and screeching. And of course, they were all amazed at our van. It was it was painted Barford orange. I'm not saying where the paint came from.
No, but I've got an idea. That's, well, you know, one of the houses that we bought when we were a youngish married couple was completely kitted out in either Barford's orange or Barford's yellow. No idea where the guy worked. But
no, of course not. No.
But yeah, and dreadful colours to get rid of.
Oh,
if you want to tone it down a bit. So is that where you got sort of hooked on travel?
That's where I got hooked on the travel, yeah, and sort of meeting New Zealanders was the biggest thing. They said, "Oh, you should go and do it." And I met people who said, "Well, we're taking this overland trip to New Zealand." And of course, I said, "Yeah, that sounded like a great idea." So I went back to London and worked for a year, and that's when I hitchhiked. So I mean, we went through places like Iran when the Shah was in control, Afghanistan, hitching all the way. Yeah. A couple of times in India, it was cheaper to catch the train.
You were a hippie before your time.
That's right. Yeah. Well, the hippies were just about being born then. You know, it was.
Well, I was a hippie, but only at weekends. It wasn't a proper one. But everybody used to talk about travelling, but not very many people really did it.
No. Well, in all my travels, you rarely meet anybody from Grantham or Lincolnshire, for that matter. I think it's so nice here. They like to stay.
Probably. Well, you keep coming back, so it can't be bad, can it? It can't be bad. Now, Denis is playing at the Three Gables. Is it on Saturday?
That's right. Yeah.
What are you doing in London on the Friday?
I'm playing at a place called the Bounty, which is in Bourne End, which is right on the Thames, and it's so you can only get there by boat. Actually, if the pedestrians have to walk about 100 yards along the towpath, but I have to carry my equipment over on the boat, and it sits right on the side. Beautiful spot.
Lovely.
It's actually a dog pub.
Is it?
The last time I was there, at one stage there were more dogs in there than people.
Do they howl?
No, they do.
They were joining in.
When I do, how much is that dog? I get a little bit of them going. But no, the landlord, because it's right being on the Thames and no parking, he encourages dog walkers into the pub. And of course, some of them got 2 or 3 dogs, so in they all come. And
so they have to have 2 or 3 drinks, I imagine.
Oh, well, crikey, yes. That's
several bowls of water.
Par for the game.
Definitely. Definitely. What other sort of things do you sing that get people really going? You've mentioned A Long Way to Tipperary.
Yeah, well, in New Zealand, it's very much country and western, so you've got a great country following there. And in this, in England, it's, well, more of a Beatles type of thing, and of course the old Elvis Presley and those sort of things. People love those sort of old.
And they all sing along to those.
They sing along, yes.
Oh,
they think that the Granada again on a Saturday morning or a Sunday night.
Takes
with Uncle Harry there leading the sing along, because they used to put all the words on the screen when Uncle Harry was running the place.
When he did Saturday morning matinee.
Saturday morning, but more so on a Sunday night. We had a big sing song before the films came on.
Well, these are the main films, because I remember that as being a sort of a children's club.
Yeah, the Saturday mornings,
yes.
We did that. But no, Sunday night was also got very social. Well, I've played myself on the Granada stage with the Trellians.
I don't remember. I don't think I saw you there, but I did see some very good acts.
Well, they had stars there as well, of course.
Did.
Little Richard, Gene Vincent, all the top stars.
I saw the Hollies and Helen Shapiro.
Oh, I saw her at the Barracks.
Oh, did you?
Shapiro,
And the Barracks,
yes.
That was another
the
place.
The Barracks was a big venue.
Had the most amazing acts there, didn't
they? Yes, they did. Screaming Lord Such and Wild Wee Willie Harris and
had Eric Clapton there.
Eric Clapton.
Tom Jones.
I don't remember Tom Jones, but he probably might have been. Yeah.
I'm sure he was there. I'll have to ask Lynn. She'll remember.
Yes.
Because her dad was something to do with it, and so she went to a lot more of the events than I did. The Walker Brothers came to the Barracks.
Yeah, I think
most
they did.
definitely.
Yeah. This has been Checky Thompson, a guy called Checky Thompson from Gunnerby was running the show.
I remember Checky Thompson. In fact, I worked for him a couple of times. I used to sell soft drinks at festivals, and I did the Nottingham Blues Festival, which was just an amazing lineup. They had the Nice, and bands like that, and I also did the Soul Festival, which was in Skegness.
Oh, Skegness!
Saw Ike and Tina Turner, Gino Washington, some absolutely stunning acts. Well, we'll have another song, and then we will talk to Denis some more. This is fascinating. Could go on for hours. I'll just say a quick hi to Steve, who's listening in and says he's enjoying the show. And that was Bob Dylan with Blowing in the Wind, because you do that one, don't you?
Oh, I do. I used to do it continuously on the streets in my busking days, and I'd do it for hours on end because I found I could bellow it out in the key of G, and the mouth organ just came right. And yes, it was one of my main street repertoire.
Now, we were talking about your travels. I think we'd got to Iran, Afghanistan. You then went to
India.
India.
Yeah, I caught a boat from on a deck cargo from Goa to Indonesia. To Malaysia, and then down through Indonesia and as far as Timor, the island hopping. I went on a plane for the first time from Timor to Darwin. It's the first time I've been on a flight. Air Garuda.
Really?
Air Garuda it was, this Indonesian airline.
So you'd managed to get all that way without flying?
Without flying. I'd never flown before, no.
And then you flew to Australia?
Yeah, and landed in Darwin, and I've been working there for about a week. I first landed a job as a hotel porter, and I cut my finger one day, went to the hospital, got it fixed up, went back to the hotel Darwin where I was working. The next day, a blue Holden Australian health car pulled up and took me away.
You were a health hazard.
I discovered that I was carrying amoebic dysentery, which is a notifiable disease and very, very dangerous. And I'd picked it up in India and wasn't aware, and I kept me in quarantine for 10 days. Wow. But luckily, being a notifiable disease, there was no charge, of course.
No, because it wasn't exactly what you'd requested, was it?
No, that's right.
So where did you go then? You did the whole of Australia?
Only down the west coast. I didn't go over to the other side, to Perth, that side. But I went down through Brisbane and the Gold Coast, Melbourne, Sydney. Spent quite a time in Sydney, and then got my second plane ride to New Zealand, and hung around for a long time. That's where I first became the busker, and I thought this is better than being a draftsman.
You really liked it there. Did you meet your wife there?
Yes, I did. Yes, I met
Yeah.
my wife in Christchurch, and we used to come back when the children were little. We used to come back for 6 months at a time. My mother still lived in Rycroft Street, and once when we came back, we decided to get married. So we got married in Ropsley Church.
In Ropsley Church?
Yes.
Aren't you doing a bit of a fundraiser there?
That's right. Yeah, on the 17th in the Ropsley Village Hall.
17th
Yeah,
of October, that'll
yes,
be,
that's
won't
right.
it?
Yes.
To raise them a few funds.
Yeah.
That's a nice thing to do.
I remember now that the vicar, people listening might remember the Reverend Foster, Basil Foster, a wonderful vicar of the old school.
Right. That's not one I know. It's a lovely church, actually.
It is,
a
yeah,
lovely
yes,
church.
very
So it's
special,
well
isn't it?
worth making the effort to raise some funds for them. Well, look, I hope all these things that you've got coming up go really, really well.
Thank you.
And perhaps next time you're touring round, you'll come back and see us again.
I hope so too. Lovely talking to you.
Yeah,
and all the people of Grantham.
it's been lovely talking to you. I love that song. Absolutely wonderful.